I mean, y'all can hear me, but I've just been sitting here quiet. Welcome back, NFG's fucking popcorn. Y'all know what's poppin'. Another night in paradise in this motherfucker. See, we're on the NFG channel, so I'm gonna show y'all this trap house tonight. You know what I'm saying? For those who like to pay attention, I got a few things going on. Uh, Matter of fact, I can fix this right now. And that's that. Alright, so now that that's done, we can go back over here and look at this place. Place. That's what we do. Dashboard, what's popping over here? Okay, 250 watch time. Average view duration is like an hour and 43. That's because since I've got that done, not affected, leave, dismiss. 11 days ago, we got 250 watch time hours, which ain't nothing. But for this channel, that's something, because guess what? See, this is what I'm talking about. That's the power of Team DWC. That's what I'll be telling people. I got my own stuff together because I just was making videos for this channel in the meantime. But now that I've got my watch time on my main hours, I got my 4 other devices running this channel for watch time hours. That's why you see, boom, it's getting it. It went from nothing, zip, to boom, 21. Views, watch time hours, that went up. We ain't gotta worry about subs yet, because once the main channel get all is, everybody gonna come through, pull up on the backup too. 289 public watch hours. That's what's up. Let's get it cracking. Today's video.
Really intelligent individuals, man. We got a high conversation coming in. Let's get into it, baby. Let's go.
Telling you, between now and April, no later than May of next year, there's going to be the biggest housing opportunity in America in the last 100 years. And it might be the last chance you get to buy real estate, okay? Like this guy that did this property right here. There's a condo right here on the corner of, across from the Starbucks in downtown Clearwater. This place, like, they could never make money here. They couldn't fill it, didn't know what to do with it, couldn't, hey, how you doing? Couldn't keep it full, like, and this guy came in here and developed this building, okay? And he made a fortune on it. All this shopping up and down here that used to be empty and vagrants and like it was nasty down here. Well, those neighborhoods could be single family homes, duplexes. Retail, they're all over America, okay? And we are going through a period. I'm going to give you, by the way, if you want to grab my book, How to Create.
See, this is what
We're back, guys. What's up? Welcome to the Fresh Air Podcast, man. It's Friday, aka normally a call-in show, but we got a
nofuxgiven
show for y'all
channel,
tonight, man. I'm really excited for this.
Excuse my courtesy.
Patreon.com/Fresh Air. We're gonna have a Zoom call this weekend. Check us out on Spotify, Google, and Podcast. Get the merch at freshairpodcaststore.com. Go subscribe to our other YouTube channel, Fresh Fit Clips. We're going to start posting clips only on that channel, guys. Starting next week, there will no longer be clips on this channel. It's going to be all on Fresh Fit Clips, so go check us out over there. This channel is only going to be for the podcast, all right, or the historical clips/shorts. And then also, Fresh, you want to tell them real quick about your vlog channel?
Guys, man, check out the vlog channel. We do live streams, lifestyle videos as well. And also as well, guys, 100K on the way. BBC Gang is no more. It's only CEO Gang. Shout out to y'all, man. Let's get it.
All right. And then also, guys, you can check out my YouTube channel, Feta1811. On there, I break down criminal cases for you guys. From my former life, I did a breakdown of the Pablo Escobar drug trafficking cell out of New York City. And also did Vibes Cartel. This weekend, I'm going to figure out a case to do for y'all. And then I'll also do the Hansen spy espionage case, the FBI agent that sold the secrets to Russia. So, yeah, man, go check that other YouTube channel out, Feta1811, if you guys want something a little different. But without further ado, man, we got a bunch of special people on the panel. I guess we can go through and have everyone introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll kind of talk about the topic at hand. So we can start right here with Miguel.
Yeah, what's up, guys? My name is Miguel, Dollar Cost Crypto. Hexakin, Hex Jesus.
Oh, God.
And my man to my left is...
Jay Waller, Justin Waller. I have a YouTube, Jay Waller 7 on Instagram, and Jay Waller on YouTube.
International man of mystery.
Cowboy!
Cowboy up.
So George Gammon, most people know me from my YouTube channel when I do whiteboard videos and the Rebel Capitalist show, Rebel Capitalist Live.
Awesome.
All right.
And I am Rollo Tomasi, the most hated man in the trad conosphere. That's all I've been doing this week.
No, man, awesome. I'm really happy to have this this panel here, guys. So, George hit me up the other day. I was like, hey, I'm going to be in town. You know, let's make a show happen. Anytime George is in town, I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's make it happen because I learn a lot every time he's on the panel. So I'm really happy to have you here. And then obviously Justin is here in Miami for once, and Rollo was in town, and Miguel was too. So I was like, fuck it, let's have a great panel show with y'all. Yeah. And we're going to talk about. We're officially in a recession, guys.
It was a big week in the news.
Yes.
As far as the economic news. Huge.
Yeah, you want to give the people a quick little...
Yeah, it was a transition, not a recession.
Yeah.
I thought we changed the definition.
First, the Fed raised rates by 75 basis points.
Yep.
So the big news there, in my opinion, is they raised rates by that much, and the 10-year Treasury actually went down. So the yield curve inverted even farther. And it's not just the 1 year and the 2 year inversion with the 10-year, but it's also the 6-month Treasury. Now, the yield is about 20 basis points higher than the 10-year. So I won't go too far into the weeds, but that is a big, big deal. And that's basically the Treasury yield curve screaming that there's going to not only be a recession, but a very significant recession. So then on Thursday, well, we back up, and the White House came out on, I believe, the 21st, because they probably got the information that we're going to have 2 consecutive quarters of negative real GDP, which technically would be the definition of a recession. So they came out on their blog and said, well, we're kind of redefining what a recession is. They say most people think that it's 2 consecutive quarters of negative real GDP, but that's not really it. No. There's more to it than that. You dumb rubes in the real economy just with those simpleton, types of definitions, but it's far more complex. So you have to incorporate the unemployment rate and all these things. So basically, they're kind of front running this because they knew what would happen on Thursday. And sure enough, we got the numbers, and it's 2 consecutive quarters of negative real GDP. So this, prior to their redefining what a recession is, would be, really bad news. That's an economic contraction.
Yeah.
And that means the economy is actually shrinking.
Yeah.
And while at the same time, we have the CPI, which is the rate of consumer price inflation that the government will admit to, at 9.1%. So what this does is you have real wages going down. So a lot of people, a lot of your viewers, I'm sure on the live stream right now, maybe they've gotten a raise increase or a wage increase since, let's say, 2021.
Yeah.
But maybe it's 5%. But the problem there is that their expenses are going up by 10, 15% per year. So in real terms, their incomes are actually going down.
Yeah.
Their purchasing power is decreasing. And we're starting to see this in the GDP numbers because people are spending less money, less aggregate demand. And it's just going to be this, in my opinion, it's going to be a downward cycle until the Federal Reserve or the government comes out with another round of stimulus or, quote unquote, money printing that takes us back probably to another wave of extremely high inflation. So I was just at Precious Metals conference today where we were discussing this at great length. So we can go into that a little bit later on.
Awesome.
But the economy has big problems right now.
Okay.
But George, isn't it even worse than that? Isn't it even worse than 9? Isn't that kind of
so that's why
number?
that's why I said that's what the government admits to. So that's headline CPI. But in reality, it's probably 15%.
Double.
Yeah, and two, what I've been calling it on my whiteboard videos is deflationary inflation. And what I mean by that oxymoron is that the stuff that you need is going way up in price. So gas, food, shelter, where the stuff you don't really need, like clothes at Macy's, that's going down because of what they call the bullwhip effect. So what happened is the government gave all these stimmy checks, so that increases aggregate demand. So everyone goes to Macy's or Target or Walmart, and they just, once the lockdowns are over, and they just buy because they had all this pent up demand, and plus they had all this quote unquote free money from the government. So the people at Macy's that are doing the ordering, as an example, they're not economists, and they don't watch my YouTube channel, unfortunately. So they think that this level of demand is just sustainable. Oh, this is the comeback. It's going to be like this forever. So I better buy more and more and more inventory, right? So then what happens? They buy all this inventory, and then the demand goes down because it was just a sugar rush from the stimmy checks in the first place.
Exactly.
And then they have to fire sell everything, which cuts into their profits, which is why you see an earnings recession right now on a lot of the companies in the S&P 500.
Wow. Wouldn't you say that those individuals that went and spent that money from the stimmy checks also don't watch your videos and are the ones that are going to get benefited, like hurt the most by this?
Absolutely. So let's go through this because I did a whiteboard the other day and I showed a chart of the average checking account for different income brackets in the United States compared to 2019.
Okay.
It's absolutely fascinating. So as an example, the lower 25% income bracket, their checking account went up by over 150%. And you see it skyrocket every
When you
single
say the lower 25%, we're talking about people that make less than 30K per year?
I don't know what they had, the lower, the two middle 25, and then the top 25%. So I would guess it's probably
somewhere in that range.
Something like that.
Okay.
So their average checking account balance went up like 150%.
Wow.
Based relative to where it was in 2019, every single time they got a stimmy check.
Okay.
And then as soon as that stimmy check gets spent, you see it just plummet all the way down. It never goes back down to where it was because you got to factor in all the expenses that they don't have. Remember the mortgage forbearance?
Yeah.
Where they didn't have to pay their rent.
They have to pay their rent
They
for a
didn't have to pay
while.
their mortgage. And to this day, they still don't have to pay back their student loan. I didn't even know that until I did the research for my whiteboard video.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's not due until September. Oddly enough, is when the elections are. So what do you think the politicians are doing?
Perfect timing. Exactly.
That's what do you think the politicians are doing? But so what's happened is you give people all this quote unquote free money, and then you reduce their expenses. So they have all this artificial purchasing power, right? But if you look at their checking balances today, they're still higher than they were in 2019, but that's very temporary because the example I use just to make the math easy on my whiteboard videos, as I said, say you start with $100.
Yeah.
And today, let's say you have $150.
Okay.
So your checking account balance is 50% higher.
Yeah.
But the problem there is you've had 2 or 3 years of high inflation. So you can't buy as much stuff with your $150
Right.
as you can with your 100. So what that's going to do is that's going to, and since your real income has gone down, right? Because you only got a 5% raise, inflation's at 10-15%.
Yeah.
So then you're going to spend down that 150 a lot faster,
Yeah.
buying the gas and the shelter and the food that you need. It's gone up in price. So what's going to happen is where you started with $100 and you just had that in there every single month. Now it's going to rapidly go from 150 down to 50 down to 0.
Yeah.
And to your point, you're going to be far worse off, the average Joe, than when you got the stimmy check in the first place. That's what people don't understand whenever they get, and that's why I say, quote unquote, free money.
Yeah.
Because they think, oh, well, this is fantastic. I'm just getting all these, checks for $2,000 or child tax credits and all these things. But what they don't understand is over the long run, in 2-3 years, you're going to be far worse off.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that come to fruition right now, and we're seeing it play out in the GDP numbers.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're basically paying for what happened back in like 2020, essentially, right now.
Yeah, but it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
So it's not something where it's just, okay, I'll give you $100 today, you give it back to me in 2 years. So on net balance, you're in the same place. No, it's I give you 100 today and you pay me back 200 in 2 years.
Yeah.
So you increase the money supply.
In aggregate total, you're worse off. Well, you increase the money supply, but you decrease the goods and services.
Right.
So remember our first conversation that we had when I was on the show, I told you guys my definition of wealth. Remember, and it's not dollars, it's not Bitcoin, it's not gold. What it is goods and services.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's the example I always use. If you're on a deserted island and you have a chest full of $1 billion, are you rich or are you poor? You're poor.
Yeah.
Because there's no stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the same thing now. What we've done is we've given people quote unquote money because we think that's wealth. We think that's purchasing power. But at the end of the day, it's not. It's the goods and services. And then we locked everyone in a cage for a year, and now we're shocked because we destroyed all the supply chains.
Yep.
And now we can't get as much stuff. The price of what is there goes up. We have shortages, and people's standard of living goes down in aggregate total.
And I think it's very important to note, like the CPI, which for those of you that are wondering, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is essentially the price of goods that are essential, your food, your gas, that type of thing, right? That going up.
Well, the CPI technically is a basket of almost everything that you buy. It's supposed to represent
like essentials, right? Like things that
and then they give it weighting, like housing is like 33%, but it's not the price of a house, or it's not really rent. They call it owner's equivalent rent, which is just a complete BS number that they kind of just pull out of thin air, But so there's a lot of stuff in there, and then they use hedonics as well, which is another, and substitution, which is. Okay, I'll go over it real quick. So what they do is, let's just say that steak goes from $10 a pound or whatever to $15.
Oh, they roll that into there too.
Right, but listen to this. This is really going to blow your mind. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, well, steak went up by $5, but beef, you can still buy hamburger for $10. So if you can buy hamburger, then it's still kind of from a cow. So we're just going to say that the prices didn't go up at all.
So substitution.
Yeah, this is one of the things that they do to come up with that 9.1 number. So that's why when Justin was saying, hey, that number's bogus, absolutely it's bogus. You almost have to double it, really.
They say there's more lies told in an Excel spreadsheet than anywhere else in the world.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Now, you've said on the show before that, what was it, like 40% of the dollars that have been printed in the last, years? Circulating in the economy right now, or printed in the last year.
Yeah, like in the last couple of years.
Is this a result of that, or were there conditions prior to that also led into this? So it's like the perfect storm.
Well, that's a tough question. So one of the reasons why there were so many dollars that got onto the balance sheet of the average Joe and Jane will say, and that's why you took M2 money supply, which is probably what you're referring to.
Yeah.
And it went up by about 25% in 2020. They could do that because of quantitative easing, because of a few things. But the main reason is because the government came out and deficit spent. And where they spent the money was just direct transfer payments to the people that spend it, that have a propensity to spend. Therefore, those dollars are going to go and circulate in the economy with a high degree of velocity. But the big problem there, and why we saw such huge inflation, is at the same time they increased demand and increased velocity, they decreased the goods and services. You see, if you have the money supply go up and the amount of goods and services goes up at the same rate, you're not going to see consumer price inflation. See, the problem is they did both. They increased demand and decreased supply, and now they're making it even worse. Because so what's Biden and all these politicians coming out and saying to help with inflation? And in fact, he came out the other day and introduced his Inflation Reduction Act. Which, okay, you're like, okay, what's the government going to do to decrease inflation? Well, they're proposing a bill or an act where they spend another $400 billion. So show me. So let's think about this. The way you bring down prices is you decrease demand and increase supply.
Yep.
Right.
So what they're doing is the exact opposite. They're spending more money, increasing demand, and then decreasing supply by trying to increase taxes on the people that are producing the stuff. So I mean, it's just a complete bizarro world.
Wow. So George, just in your opinion, is the Great Reset real? How can we like prepare for it?
Well, that's a very difficult. Yes, I think it is. And you just go to the World Economic Forum's website, and it's just right there. You know, it's the Great Reset agenda that they are trying to implement by 2030, and it's just their vision of the world, where they talk about this private-public partnership, which is nothing but just global fascism. That's really what it is from an economic standpoint.
Okay.
And when I mean fascism, I mean when the government really doesn't control or doesn't own the means of production, that corporations control the means of production, but the government influences them to such a degree that the government might as well own the means of production. That's what I'm talking about. So you've got all these mega corporations, like Salesforce is a great example, and or Facebook, something like that, and they own all of these businesses, right? And then people own shares, but you've got Klaus and BlackRock and Larry Fink and all these Davos types. They influence the CEOs to such a degree that they might as well own the mega corporations. And you'll notice, let's go back to the lockdowns, right? What did they do with mom and pop business? Is they said, well, you're non-essential, Walter. You know, you own that dry cleaner on the corner. Well, you're non-essential. But Amazon, the mega corporation, where Jeff Bezos is part of the Davos crowd,
Essential.
obviously essential. So what you're doing is you're taking all of this demand and all this revenue that would go to 1 million different small businesses and mid-sized businesses, and you're consolidating it to 4 or 5 of these mega corporations, right? And so if you're the global elite, and if you're trying to achieve this great reset agenda, where you're trying to usurp power, control, wealth, is it easier to control 5 CEOs or 1 million or 500 million of these small businesses?
5, yeah.
You see, and this is why I think one of the things that they'll push in the future is climate change lockdowns. So I'm not here to debate whether climate change is real or anything, but what I am here to tell you and your audience is that the global elite don't care about the temperature in the ocean. I can tell you that right now.
100%, bro. They don't care at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
The boat in the ocean.
They're just using that.
The have-yachts and the have-nots.
And I think that they'll take, I have a presentation that I do at some conferences that I call "Never Let a Crisis Go to Waste." Right? That quote from Rahm Emanuel. And I think this is how the global elite see like the COVID crisis. Well, let's try to push lockdowns because we're conditioning them to accept lockdowns if we want to implement them for XYZ reason in the future to help us achieve this great reset agenda. You see, so I'm not saying that this is what's going on. I haven't personally talked to Klaus. I'd love to get him on my show. I'd love to get him on the Fresh and Fit show. We'll get him on here. But if you look at the incentive structure, that you can't ignore.
But you're right though. There's a quote that says, "Chaos comes to order." So on some level, that's true.
Yeah, and I think I've done a lot of research on this, and it gets very kind of hard to get your head around everything they say because you can't nail them down. They don't give you any details. They just give you platitudes. But in all the research that I've done in looking at Klaus's book and their videos and what they say on their website, you can break their objectives down to three main things. Number one, they want to reduce the usage of energy globally.
Yep.
They want to reduce energy use. Okay. So then you look at that through the lens of what's happening in Europe right now in Russia. You kind of scratch your head and say, wait a minute here. So the Germans now are being conditioned to where they're not going to have energy this winter.
Yeah.
I don't want to put on the tinfoil hat, but it's interesting that that's the number one objective of
waiting for it.
kind of the Great Reset agenda and the global elite. And number two is they want to decrease they say they want to decrease the birth rate. Not that they say explicitly, but yeah, I mean, they want to decrease the population.
Shout out to Bill Gates.
Shout out
And
feminism.
yeah, I mean, they'll come out and say this explicitly. Don't take my word on it. Just watch their YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And then third, they just want to usurp power, control, and wealth. And if you can just break it down into that little framework and look at everything that they do and everything that they're saying in the news, it all makes a lot more sense.
Wow.
George.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Justin. And then I'll read the chats after this.
Yeah,
Guys,
chat.
real quick, I'm going to probably only read 50 and up from this point forward just because I don't want to interrupt the conversation. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So, but go ahead, Justin, and then I'll read after. Go ahead.
So my question for you is why not nuclear?
Well, from their standpoint or from my standpoint?
Both.
Well, from my standpoint, I think it's a great solution.
Right. Exactly. So why not?
Yeah. Well, to give them a little credit here, on their website, they have talked about some of the benefits of nuclear energy. And if you look at the EU, they just came out and they put nuclear into a category of quote unquote green energy. So I think that could be a huge investment opportunity in the future because right now uranium, relatively, if you look at a historic chart just for inflation. So if you could buy uranium right now through a uranium trust, and Sprott's got one, that could be a way to play the Great Reset agenda. Right. If you want to go long, kind of the insanity of the politician, because I think there's going to be less and less and less capital going into fossil fuels. Yeah. But this is going to create a massive
supply shock, right?
Not just a supply shock, but it's going to cause an energy crisis.
Right.
Really, nothing less than a crisis. Because if your audience really thinks about how inelastic demand is for fossil fuels, this cup could not be made without fossil fuels. Chemicals can't be made. Fertilizer can't be made without fossil fuels.
Which is a big problem.
That's a big problem. Yeah, that's a big problem. In fact, they have a saying that you go from the right in the middle of a good economy and starvation is riot. I think that's the way people have to think through a potential food shortage.
Yeah.
Right. That means social unrest. That means the pitchforks and the torches out in the streets. That's a bad situation.
Yeah. Shout out to the farmers banks in China.
Yeah.
60 billion seeds.
Yeah, and that's another thing. If you look at the Dutch farmers, that's coming down straight from the World Economic Forum. And they're not going to stop there. They're going to continue to try to push that unless we, the people, fight back and push back and show them that this is totally unacceptable. That's the good news, is that there's a lot more of us than there is of them. Right. And if you look at world history, you see that even if they control the guns, even if they control the military, even if they control all of the, whatever type of power you want to attach to them, at the end of the day, the people, if they stand together, they will always win. And a great example of that is when the Soviet Union came down, right? I use the example of Romania, and I forgot the guy's name, but they had this guy that had been a dictator there for like 20 years.
They killed his ass.
I
was just at that building like 3 weeks ago.
9 days later.
You know that's the heaviest building in the world.
I didn't know that, but I saw they've got the YouTube videos on there. And what happened is the Romanians saw all these other countries on the perimeter of Russia getting their freedom. Right. So they said, we want the same thing. So they went out to protest. It starts at 10 people, then 100 people, then 10,000. And then the guy goes out there with the military and just starts shooting people, because that's what he had done in the past to really squash any type of uprising. But what this time it was different in the sense that the more people he went out there and shot, the more people came out to protest. And it got to a point where there was like 500,000 people in the square, protesting, and he came out to address them. And in the past, when he would raise his hand, everyone would shut up because they knew if they didn't, that one of the police would shoot him. But this time, every time he raised his hand, they got louder and louder and louder. And he went from being a dictator with complete control over the entire country, the military, the guns, the power, the money, you name it. 9 days later, like you said, they took him out back and shot him. Done.
Wow.
So, you know, I'm not condoning violence in any way, shape, or form, but I'm just using that as a story to illustrate the power that we have. All of us, everyone on this live stream, you know, if we get sick and tired enough of the global elite and of the central planners and authoritarians, if we stand up, we will win.
Okay. Shit. All right. Real quick, I'll hit these chats real quick. We've got almost 4,000 y'all in here, man. So go ahead and like the video because you guys just got a bunch of education in the past 24 minutes.
Yep.
Chris, do we have them up? Okay, I'm gonna run through these because these came in earlier, guys. But then from this point forward, we're only gonna read 50 and up. However, every single chat that comes in will be shown on screen. So we appreciate all the support, guys. But we want to make sure that you guys get all this sauce because we got a really great panel today, and I want to minimize interruptions. What is the biggest wealth transfer, crypto or divorce? Transfer of the house, pension, savings, investments, that's when marriage causes divorce. Funny. And then $5 again from him. He goes, if you're married, it's not your crypto, it's really hers. The blue pill divorce judge will give it 50%.
It's common.
And he goes, MGTOW, men guarding their own wallets. Okay, I like that one. DC, please tell me ETH is going to drop back down to 900. Yes. Okay, boom. Miguel's telling you. The interview with Jay Baller and Myron was pure gold. Fantastic stuff. Every time I hear Jay Baller speak, I zone in with full attention because this man speaks in diamonds, crystals, and emeralds, and that's from Leon VRP. Okay, awesome. Holden Ebedini, panel of G's tonight. George, loved your 3 reasons video 2 days ago. Lots of good laughs from that. Shout out to Justin, Miguel, Rolo, and the whole FNF squad. Like the damn video. Yes, guys, like the video. Salis, I'm sorry, Rolo, I couldn't watch the whole show with Jedediah. It was a headache. She kept interrupting you. Do you have anything you want to say?
Go watch the clips. There's millions of them now on her channel.
Are there? Okay.
Yeah, she was on your ass, bro.
Yeah,
yeah, it was very profitable for her. Let's just say, like, for the 30-second soundbite clips.
Shout out to the view.
But I like that better than the Ruslan one.
She's a typical feminist that doesn't argue in logic, just feelings. $5, Derek Mitchell. Myron, we need a FedIt for Kenneth Petty attempted grape case. I don't know who that is, but okay. $10 from Liam VRP. I should have been a cowboy. I should have learned to rope and ride. Okay. Okay, Justin. Okay, now I can actually see. Okay, what's your small island investment perspective, Tyrone H?
No, bro, stop it. That's the guy from last time. He's like, I'm gonna buy island, donating $2. I'm like, bro, how is this possible? $2? Bro, stop it. Stop it, bro.
Give it away. $10. Thank you so much. $10 from Dax Hill. In Austin, Texas, eggs went from $3.30 to $9.60. Wow. Steak per pound went from around 14 to 24. Yep, it's happening. Michael James Campanoli. Are we going down more or not? Okay. And then we got shout out to FNF. This is from Retro Assassin. He goes, shout out FNF and everyone on the panel. Question: what are some of the books are good for starting a proper business in this recession time? Being poor, keep grinding birds. Don't worry, just keep watching the show. Girlfriend and I've been living together for 1 year, and she's been cheating on. She has since moved out. I'm a 22-year-old, and I don't know what to do. Go get another bitch, more brother. Kwasi goes, fresh and fit. What's up, George, Jay, Rolo, and Migs, much love to all y'all. Glad y'all are here. Also, FNF are not y'all not jacking the Shorts channel no more. No. We put on clips, so check out the clips channel. Everything's gonna go on the clips channel. Evening, guys. Why Ethereum skyrockets in the bear market rally, almost 70% up, and that's from Douglas Ferreira. You want to give a quick answer to that?
Short-term rally.
Okay.
Yeah, dovish because the Fed's dovish. I think risk assets up. Yeah.
Last $10 goes, George, thoughts on potential World War III in the next 5 years. If China invades Taiwan, then the U.S. has to step in to defend. If Russia, U.S., and China are in a war, then we're in World War III. Thoughts somewhere. We'll discuss that in a second because that will come into play. Okay. JBX, what do you guys think is the bare minimum a person needs to earn per year to survive in the next few years in this inflation?
George brought up a very good point about that earlier. But we talked about that.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Michael Maestro, $2, thank you, and then $10 Life Matters. Off topic, but thoughts on either client saying he wouldn't want to debate y'all because of monkeypox. The fuck? I didn't even know. He's making excuses all over the place.
So first it was COVID, and now
it's monkeypox. I'm a family. All right, bro. We all families here.
Okay, Wayne, $2. Can you imagine a conspiracy theorist trying to top what is actually happening before our eyes? Okay. Sandizi, shooting my shot here. Met you at the bank today, fresh, and was wondering what's the move after the after-hour show. Heard you're feeling generous and want to show your boy around the club scene. Huge ride or die fan since day one. CEO gang. What the fuck?
Send me a DM, bro. But yeah, I met him at Wells Fargo Bank. He's just like, bro, what's up, man? I was like, what's up, dude?
Oh, I thought it was a girl for a second. I was like, what the hell?
It's a dude. Shout out to you, bro.
Yeah, pause, man.
Okay. Mike Sinatra. Hey, guys, I have a 5-figure Amazon FBA business online arbitrage I started 5 months ago. With inflation going on, is it smart for me to stay in it, or should I change the venture? Keep watching the show, my friend. We're going to talk about that. Georgia Kella, last two here, goes, even given the climate change issue, it would seem large corporate commercial real estate is the largest share of energy consumption, which influence the pollution issue. But large corps siding with WEF want to be exempted from paying the cost. All right, we'll get into that as well. That's from George Okello. And then the last one here, Offie121 all the way from Brazil. For your knowledge, gentlemen, nuclear waste is non-recyclable. Most of the waste storage of former nuclear fuel, nuclear rods, are kept in non-habitant North Russia. The amount is constantly rising. All right, cool. So for some of you guys that are just joining the stream, go ahead and like the video, number one, okay? We got about 4,000 y'all in here. From this point forward, we're going to read 50 and up, guys. Thank you so much for the donations. Every single donation will be shown on screen, but we're only going to read 50 and up because I want to make sure that you guys get all this sauce with this awesome panel. We got a crypto expert in the house. We got someone that knows the economy. We got real estate investors in the commercial world with steel. We got Rolo Tomasi in the house. Yep. Intersection dynamics. So we're going to talk about pretty much us being in a recession and how it's going to affect all different facets of your life.
Now, right before the show, George brought a very good point regarding our last show we did with the girls, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind bringing that one more time, George? Oh, everyone here alive?
Yeah, I was actually at the gym just, and your show was there, so I clicked it just to check out what you guys were talking about.
Thank you, brother.
And you guys had a panel of the gals like you typically do. And then you had the one gal volunteer to try to play the guy role. And then you guys played the girl role. I think you're standing right over here. And what was interesting is she just couldn't get that either. It took her like a half hour to explain it.
Yeah.
Anyway, once she got it, well, as far as you guys start off the live stream by asking the gals what the minimum would be that a guy would have to make annually in order for the girl to be consider him
as an option.
Yeah, an option. And most of the gals said about 100 grand. That would be their minimum. I think one gal said 500 or $1 million, but most of them said 100 grand. So then this gal comes up and tries to pick you guys up as though you're the girls and she's the guy. And the scene was you guys were at a very fancy restaurant here locally. And you had bought like a $500 bottle of, or no, what she did is she came up and she told the waitress to buy you like a $500 bottle of wine. And then she said, hey, go and pay for their meal. And Myron, you brought up something like, well, okay, that's going to be like $1,500.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, well, of course. But the guy, be a man. Like, of course you're gonna, well, I would pay for that. Like, why not? You just got to man up and pay the bill. That's what you do.
Yeah.
You know, you want to get the ladies, you pay the bill.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came to my mind, I started laughing. I'm like, this is the gal. I think she was one that said this. That said the minimum amount a guy would need to make to date her is 100 grand a year.
Yeah.
I'm like, how many guys making 100 grand a year can just go out to dinner every single night and throw down $1,500 just paying for everyone's meal, you know, that he finds attractive. Like, it's just totally unrealistic.
Yeah.
And what you pointed out in our conversation before you started recording is the gap or the delta between reality and their view of how the world really works. You know, they see a lifestyle and they think that they see it on Instagram, or maybe this is, I mean, you guys would know better than I would. Maybe they have so many guys hitting them up in their DMs.
Yeah.
They assume that this type of lifestyle that they live, where all the guys are paying for everything, that can happen on an income of 100 grand a year, but they don't realize, no, that's $1 million a year. And then what you have to do is the math. And this is something we were talking about, how most gals today, at least the ones on your show, I think their issue is a math problem. And not that they can't. No, it's not that they can't do math. But what I was referring to is if you've got 100 girls with an expectation level of, let's say, right here, right? The guy that can just come in and drop $1,500 and buy random people dinner, right? That's their expectation. Well, there's only for every 100 girls that meet that. Right. So the gals have a decision to make. Either they all need to share that guy, or they need to lower their expectations. And this is where, you know,
George, how dare you say such a thing?
Yeah, but this is where social media, you know, kind of conflicts with reality.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why you get some of these gals that come on here that are so frustrated. And they say, well, where are all the good guys? Where are all the good guys? Where are all the good guys?
Where's my Justin Waller?
Yeah. And it's based on their expectation of what their social media feed.
Yeah.
And it's not based in reality.
Yeah.
And that's where the math just doesn't work.
Yeah. And it's just amazing because when you, even when you explain it to them that there's not enough of these guys to go around, they will sit there and say and insist, I'm going to manifest it. He'll find me. And even if I do find this guy, he's going to take me seriously and be monogamous to me. And it's always incredible to me how women get the ability to, the luxury of being able to be delusional. Men don't, man.
Yeah.
Men don't. You know, like we got to understand, we know what we measure up as. Like guys typically stay within their realm of like girls that they're attracted to. Women always try to punch above their weight class. Men typically punch below their weight class. You know, so any thoughts on that, guys, as far as the marketplace goes and everything else?
Oh, I don't feel like women count very much. No, seriously. I think they don't count, and they keep score based off of perception. Because girls just want to have fun.
Yeah.
So I think that there is also trouble coming to a lot of men that have outwardly put that perception out, because one thing I think George would definitely agree to is that we've kind of been in a time where debt is a lot easier to get, and people
interest rates have been so low.
Right. And so when you talk about like an individual's GDP, their output, their value being important, like I think there's individuals that are living inflationary lives. And so like if you have a shit credit score, but somebody will loan you money and you don't realize that you're probably getting financially fucked, like a credit card that's in the 20%, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so you can go on the internet and flex. So that tide rises up, but when it goes down, you're going to get exposed. A lot of dudes are going to get their fucking heart broken over this shit.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we were on your interview yesterday on your show, and you showed me a picture of the young man who had called in and asked about I forget the guy's name, but he was a good-looking guy, and he was going through a breakup or something like that, and he just like he took care of himself. And he was actually looked like somebody who had some sort of like value to him, and he was just his self-impression was one of like, I'm just a face in the crowd kind of thing. It's like, no, you're not. And I know we use this all the time, like the female delusion calculator on the show all the time. Well, when I'm doing one-on-one counseling right now and I encounter a guy like that, I said, let's go and put your stats into the female delusion calculator and let's see where you fit into the population of the United States, right? So we put in like your height, are you obese, are you fat, are you in shape, what's your income level, how tall are you, right? All those things that are in the calculator there, and I say, okay, let's see where you fit into all of this. And for a guy like that, he might fit into like 0.0000126% or something like that. And they don't realize what percentage of the population that they actually represent, and that they don't understand their own like base value. And those are just like simple stats from like
but you know
the
what?
CDC and like the Census Bureau.
But you know what? I would be willing to argue, but let's say he made like 80 grand a year. Even with his looks and how good is Money Muscles game, right? Even with that, and if he made 100 to 90 a year, which he may or may not, he looked like a trainer to me, he's still not good enough for the girl that was on this show last night. Which is actually the problem in itself. Because that guy had fashion, he had looks, he was built, and let's say he makes $80,000 a year, still not good enough.
And he's not dropping $1,500 every single time he goes.
No, but see, here's the problem, right? There's guys out there, 100%, especially here in Miami, and they're actually doing it every single day. Now, here's the problem, right? If a girl gets a taste of that lifestyle, even one time, just one time, guess what? Her mindset is, you know what? Damn, I got paid for meal, drinks, lit. I had a great time at the party. You know what? I can get this all the time.
It's her new perceived value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This
Now her
is her
standard
new
is
perceived
raised.
average too. That's her new perceived average.
Yeah.
Like she just assumes that that's
It's
just
apex
a typical,
fallacy and like on steroids is what it ends up being. And then, here's the downstream effect of this, and I talked about this with Jedediah when I could get a word in edgewise. When we see, like, when we talk about, like, should a man cheat, or does a high-value man have, like, like, I hear Tate talk about this all the time, like, and you as well. It's the idea that, like, high-value men have been defined by three things: resources, territory, and access to, exclusive access to virginic, beautiful, fertile women. Okay, so the downstream effect of that in 2022 is the guys who are the elite level guys are being shared by all these women who say, well, you know, this is what I'm entitled to. So either I have to lower my expectations and lower my standards, or else, yeah, exactly. Or else I have to share this one high value guy with a bunch of other girls and hope to God that I'm going to be able to lock this guy down in the future at some point. And so when we talk about like, well, a high value guy should cheat, or a guy who has the ability to cheat. I've said before, it's that, you know, women want a guy who other men want to be and other women want to get with.
Yeah.
And also that, you know, women don't want a guy to cheat, but they love a guy who could cheat. That guy is the guy that is the high value, the elite of the elite that they all feel entitled to.
Yeah.
And so you get this sort of soft kind of like a low-key like polygamy, but it's the women that are inspiring this or incentivizing this for the one guy, and all the rest of the guys are just like, I'm just an average guy. I can't afford like bottle service in Miami.
But you know, it's going to get worse too.
Yeah, it's inflation in the sexual marketplace.
But I can lay over macro on top of what you just said, because let's think this through. Because what your point was fantastic in the sense that you were talking about people consuming more than they produce.
Right.
Because when interest rates are artificially low and money is cheap, and let's say asset prices are going up and up and up, well, people are able to consume more than they produce. I always use the example of a school teacher in California that's making 50 grand a year.
Okay.
Let's say she buys a house in 2012 for 200 grand. She puts down $20,000. Now that house is worth $2 million.
Okay.
Okay, but she's still got the teaching job making 50 a year. So she's not producing any more goods or services. None. Zero. But yet she's a millionaire. Okay, look at how much purchasing power was created just by cheap money.
Yeah.
You see, so your point is when the tide goes out, then you can see who's swimming naked.
Yes.
And right now that ratio is one guy that is at the level of the expectations of the 100 women. When we go through a recession, which we most likely will go through in 2022 or 2023, and it gets really bad, especially if we have a really deep recession, then that one for 100 is going to go down to 1 to 1,000. You see what I'm saying? Because all those guys that could do the bottle service and could do all these things because they're consuming more than they produce because of asset prices artificially going up, so artificially low interest rates, those guys are gone. And now it's just going to be the guys left that actually produce more than they consume at a level where their incomes are high enough to meet those expectations that have been set by social media.
Hey, check this out.
Yo, to bring that to real life. So Miguel, remember we spoke about you guys that made all the money in crypto, they were blowing money out. You know, the moment crypto went down in the market, where were the guys gone? So these guys were literally every night spending money in the club, getting bottles, getting, you know, VIP service, everything like that, right? Getting all the girls, taking girls from this table to that table. Basically, you're taking all the girls from the club, right? What happened was the moment the market went down, they're nowhere to be found. So what happened was the guys that actually had the bread, that weren't blowing as much money in the club, they still blew some money, but it wasn't to that extent. And all the girls are going to them. So that's a good point.
That's actually what I was just about to say. Like, if you tie into what he just said into the sexual marketplace, you know how they always say the rich get richer when there's blood in the streets?
Right.
There's about to be blood in the streets.
Yeah.
And so if you ever wanted to start a harem game, like me.
The tide's going out. It's getting sexual.
And so yeah, of course the rich get richer, but also they can the rich can get richer in the sexual marketplace. And that's exactly what I was going to say to George's point, is like that thing at the club that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Man, that's real life. That's real life, man.
But you know what's funny? Guys that actually have the money, they leverage their network. So for example, they don't spend 10K every night at the table. What they do is they say, you know what? All right, I got money. I already proven my point. You know what? I'm become friends with some of the promoters, the owner of the club, and they come in for free and they get bottles regardless. But guys that don't have any money, any connections at all, they spend like 10, 20K at the table, looking all cool, looking all fly. But like when the tide comes in, where are they?
It's an illusion.
Yeah.
You know, the only table I think I've ever bought was on Andrew's birthday last year.
Yeah.
And
you know, you can afford a table every night.
If I wanted to every night. But why would I do it on some bimbo?
Bam.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know what it cost me to like jump on a plane real quick and come eat dinner with you the other night. Like, it probably cost me a couple grand, and then the dinner was like what, 300 or something. It probably cost me like, I don't know, $2,000 just do that on a whim, you know. But am I gonna do that on some chick? No, bro, I'm not gonna do that.
It's funny. It's for the chance to get in the chick. Because they might never get a chick.
Yeah, that's the chance.
So let's go down that path, because that's another thing we were discussing prior to hitting the record button.
Yeah.
Is how I think cold approach is the term you guys would use. How I think that's exponentially more difficult today than it was prior to social media. So I'm old enough to have gone out a lot in 2006, 2007.
We can tell, George.
But I used to go out quite often there in Scottsdale. Okay. And this was, they had Facebook, but it really wasn't too big of a thing, And back then, like we were discussing, the reason people would go out, including the gals, is to meet other people. And if you were a gal back then, think about this: no social media, no, I don't know if there was Match.com but there wasn't any Tinder or anything like that, right?
Dating sites were around, but they were frowned upon back then.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember too.
Those were the analog years.
Like if you went on like Match.com or any of these websites, like it was kind of like they would make fun of you. It was still like not a thing yet to use like dating websites to meet women.
Good point. So think about that. If you're a 25-year-old gal, and you're single, and let's say you're trying, you're looking for a date or something like that. How do you find the dude? Like all your people, I'm sure you got a lot of young people watching this, and they probably haven't thought that through. The only way they could do that, usually you meet some guy at work or maybe at school, but you have to meet them in real life.
Yeah.
You see? So then they would go out. So if you were cold approaching a gal back then, I think the chances that you would have of getting a number of dates were far higher because that was one of their only options to find a date. Where now, in 2022, they've got an abundance mindset, to say the least, because of Instagram and all of the, I guess you guys call it validation, that they're getting on social media. So they don't have to be receptive to people guys coming up to them and asking them out in real life, because it happens so often in the virtual world in social media.
And I just to add to what you just said, I've always said it that social media has given women an abundance mindset to a fault, and it's hurt men and given them a scarcity mindset to a fault.
Absolutely.
So with the women, right, a guy will come up that meets their requirements or whatever it may be, attractive guy, whatever, but they know that I got 20 guys on my Tinder, or another 50 guys on my Instagram DMs, etc. They have this higher perceived sense of self-worth. So a guy that would have been probably attractive 10, 15 years ago with the advent of social media and dating apps, who would have probably gotten a chance, was probably going to get scrubbed over now, right? Because women have an abundance mindset where it's like, I can always replace and do better, which is why girls overwhelmingly initiate breakups, divorces, etc., especially nowadays. But men, on the other hand, don't get nearly as many options, which is why we have so many guys simping, scarcity mindset, fuck, she's the one. So it's hurting both genders from opposing sides.
I think it actually gets worse too.
Okay, go ahead.
Because we've talked about it from, the gal's perspective.
Yes.
But I think from the guy's perspective, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'd love your input on this. When we were growing up prior to social media, right? And I had a conversation with Josh, my research assistant, who's about 20 years old, about this on the drive down. I said,
I think he's still here.
When I was growing up as a kid, when we moved to a new neighborhood, what would you do when you're 10 years old? You would have to get on your bike, literally knock on their door and say, hey, my name is George. I just moved to the area. You want to go out and play basketball sometime? Or you'd have to go look at a football. You'd have to interject yourself socially. There was no online. That didn't exist. So you had to basically develop those social skills.
Live in real time, right with somebody in front of your face.
Yeah, so I think my point is that with my generation, Generation X, and this might have been the last generation that would maybe fit into this bucket, there was a baseline level of charisma.
Okay.
That you just had because of the way you grew up and just the social interactions that you had in real life, not online. But now the kids, that are on Instagram from 5 years old or 10 years old, all the way up to when they're 20, 22, and they're, going out there and dating and doing all these things. The guys, they don't have that baseline charisma.
And the social skills that
and the
come
social
from
skills. I was
that.
just at this I won't say the name of the conference, but I was at this place, and I had a few I get people that come up to me and recognize me from the YouTube channel quite often. And this kid comes up, real great kid, but he's very socially awkward. Like he's kind of talking to you, but he's looking over here, and he's kind of fidgety, and he can't really get out the words. And he's looking out here, and he was telling me how much he enjoyed your content. And I said, well, that's great, because I enjoy it as well. I think Rollo really gets it. That was the bottom line. And he said, well, yeah, but there's a couple things missing. I'm like, okay, well, what do you have in mind? He goes, well, me as an example. He's like, I'm you know, I do well. He's talking about his finances, that he has got a good paying job, maybe 100, 125 a year.
Yeah.
And he's like, and, you know, I kind of, but he's doing it in this way that's, I guess, on the spectrum, or whatever you want to call it. And he says, and I work out, you know, I'm in good physical condition. And he says, but I have a very hard time with women. And the first thing I thought to myself, this guy's such a nice guy, but he just lacks self-awareness. He doesn't realize that yes, he's got those components, but he doesn't have that baseline charisma.
Yeah.
And that social
Learn
ability,
social skills. Yeah.
social skills, to where if he did go out on a date, even if he's making 120 a year in good shape, the gals aren't going to give him time of day.
Yeah.
Because he just kind of has that awkward vibe.
Yeah.
And I think that's a result of Generation Z and maybe some of the millennial guys growing up online without developing those skills. And that just makes the whole thing that we're talking about even worse.
Yeah.
To bring it into real-time perspective, so, you know, I'm always outside the clubs, going to events, meeting people, right? And it's funny because I'll ask questions to people when I meet them, right? Girls, guys, everybody. And it's funny because even in the club itself, right? Before a girl even leaves her house, she's like multiple DMs from guys saying, you know what, come to this club, come to this event. And it's like maybe 5 to 10 good options she can choose from. So she might choose one option where, like, you know, this guy's pretty hot, he has a good lifestyle, I'll choose him. She goes to the club, meets him, he's awkward. Oh, this guy's kind of weird. I'm going to move on. Goes to another table, meets another guy. Mind you, they all DM there maybe the same night. So she's going from guy to guy to see who actually has, who's actually like has personality, but at the same time has a lifestyle. And it's hard to find. Now, just to add to that point as well, regarding girls even making friends. They'll go on Bumble friends as well, and they'll meet girls on Bumble rather than in person. And once again, you know how girls are, very catty, very, you know, not very personable. The point is that, like, the character flaws that people would see in person nowadays, like back in the day, they can't see because social media is like the buffer. But then when they meet in person, it's like they have no skills at all to be social. So it's kind of weird.
And I think that's why social proof is so important.
Yeah.
I mean, you were talking the other night about how that's like priority number one. If you had to prioritize everything, social proof is what you would pick.
You had to pick one.
Because because gals are so intuitive. You know, that's one thing that they do extraordinarily well. They're far better
at communication.
Way better.
I mean, innately better.
They just intuitively pick that up. And they're very risk averse for obvious reasons, right? So if they see you as someone who's being selected by other men and other women, that reduces their risk tremendously. So that's why, that social proof, I think, in my 49, 50 years of being on this planet, from all my friends and everything that I've seen going out and dating, I totally agree with you. That would be the priority number one. That would be the thing that holds the biggest impact.
100%. I mean, you can look at someone like a Dan Bilzerian, right? Right. Just as an extreme example, he's not he's not like necessarily a Chad. He's 5'9", has a big ass beard, whatever. Might not be the most attractive guy ever, but the fact that he has hordes of women with him all the time, right? That shows right then and there, yo, this guy has social proof. You look at Hugh Hefner, not the most attractive guy, but he had a bunch of women with him. I always say, if you have bitches, it's much easier to get more bitches, right? Passive bitch income.
Yeah.
And what it is like, because women are not independent thinkers. As much as feminists get mad at me for saying this shit, when it comes to sexual selection and mate selection in general, women are not independent thinkers. Even if you meet a girl and she's head over heels over you and she likes you, she's still going to go ahead and talk with her friends and see what she thinks. I literally was talking with a girl the other night. She wants to come hang out with me, whatever. She had to go and talk with her friends about me first to kind of get an idea of where I stand. And that's just how women are. It's not like if I meet a girl and I like her, I'm not going to go to Fresh and Chris and be like, hey, what do you guys think? And if they say, nah, man, she's ugly or whatever, I'm not going to make my decision based off what they say. I'm just going to do what I want to do because men are independent thinkers, right? We can defend ourselves, etc. Comes from physicality. But with women, they're not. So they need a cosign a lot of times from either their friends or other women to see where you stand on a social hierarchy basis, and then go from there. But when a girl's able to see with other women, a lot of the work is done. These bitches verified you, cool. I know what it takes. I know how fickle women are as a woman myself. If they're picking you, that's good enough for me.
You're not dating the woman. You're dating her and her sister and her mom and her friends and everybody on Instagram and everybody in her social circle right there. And I'll tell you that. Hold on one second. The reason for that, you want to say, well, they're not independent thinkers. The reason why is when they're doing mate selection, they have to be very, very particular. Like, because back in our ancestral past, even if she made the right decision, that's still a life-threatening decision. So what she has to do is she has to get the consensus of her girlfriends and the other female members of the tribe to say, is this guy verified? Is this guy really who he says? Because I can't rely 100% on my feminine intuition and all of my own, trying to filter, hypergamous filter, trying to figure out if this guy is really the real deal or he's not. That's why you get shows like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, Cheaters, all these things that sort of, even romance novels, they stimulate that intrigue to see if that guy is actually who he says he is. All the best shows on reality shows like, Love Island or whatever the hell it is right now, all of those are determining that guy's quality. And how do women do that? They can't do it on their own, or they don't trust themselves to be a good judge of whether this guy's for real or not. So they have to go and get third-party affirmation and confirmation from their girlfriends and outside sources. So they go, well, if I make the decision to get with this guy and he turns out not to be who he says he is, at least these guys were wrong with me too. So it's not just on me, it's on everybody else who got tricked as well.
Yeah, I know from personal experience when I used to go out during that time frame, we'd get a table or something like that. If I was just with like 2 other guys, I'd have a gal come up every once in a while and just approach you. But if I was there with like 15 people, that I was taking them all out, employees, friends, people I knew, you would have far more gals come up and approach you and approach the table. And another thing, in this building where I used to live, I was neighbors with a guy, I won't name his name, but he was a very famous basketball player. I won't even say the team. But
people that watch the videos know who it is. Go ahead.
But we were good buddies because we both had this particular Lamborghini. You'd probably enjoy it. But
there you go.
Anyway, we parked next to each other, so we're good buddies. So occasionally after the games, we would go out together and we would just get a table as a group. And when I would go out with this gentleman, I mean, it was, you would have just,
night and day.
Oh my gosh, you would have just gals constantly, not just for him, but for you and everyone that you were there with would be approaching the table. And another interesting story that I think you should shed some light on the evolutionary, the hardwiring here, is I would meet gals, right, when we were out, and they would see other women with this basketball player, and they would, one night, let's say it's Friday night, and they'd say, oh, I would never, sleep with that guy. I would never do that. I would never, ever, ever. Oh, look at those girls. They're trashy. They're blah, blah, blah. They're cheapening themselves.
Disqualified.
And I'm not kidding you. The very next Friday night, I would go over to his place for like after hours. And those same girls that said, oh, telling me that those other girls were trashy and that they never do that, were at his apartment going into his room. And that true story. I mean, and so that, that was back in 2007 or so. So now whenever I read your stuff, or Rich's stuff, it all makes so much sense because I've seen it with my own eyes.
It's funny because even promoters nowadays use that same tactic. So for example, they've been in the club, right? Bring multiple girls. Guess what? There's a saying that says BYOG, right? Sorry, BYOB. Bring your own bottle to the club, right? That's kind of like a saying sometimes that people use. But I say BYOG. Bring your own girls, because when you bring your own girls, you get more girls. So for example, let's say I'm in the club, I have a table, I'm a promoter, right? If I'm with 2 dudes, who's coming on the table? Nobody. If I have 5 girls on the table, guess what? Oh wow, other girls are there? What's going on? Who are these people? And what happens is, when they see other girls there as an option, you know what? I'm gonna hover around and see if we can get a part of the table too. And then let's say I add in a celebrity. Oh Lord, now somebody's just popping. I want to see who's that. And it was funny. They might not even know who it is, but just the fact that he has girls around him, they want to find out who it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, I got invited this past week to judge the Playboy bikini contest with Michael Sartain. In fact, I did his podcast. So, it was hard. It was hard work. Big shout.
He want to come on the show.
Big shout out to Michael. Yeah, bring him on, bro.
I'm actually going to go down.
He's absolutely an incredible dude. But the point I'm trying to make is he's good friends with Dan Barzer, and we talked about that. And what I was able to see at that event was, it seemed like the prettier the girls that were around Michael, the more pretty girls came around. You know what I'm saying? It's like it was almost like this compounding interest.
She code.
Where it's like, if you really want to get beautiful women, use beautiful women as bait, and
Yeah.
he has absolutely mastered it.
And the thing with Dan Bilzerian, like that people don't get is that he's smart enough to know that the more girls I have around me, the less work I have to do in the long run.
Absolutely.
Because he even talked about this before, I think in his book or whatever. You know, and shout out to him for understanding intersexual dynamics and knowing that social proof is pretty much one of the strongest components when it comes to being attracted to the opposite gender.
Yeah.
The more girls he had, the less work he had to put in. He has said he used to play a game where it's like, okay, I want to smash a girl without saying a word to her. And he was able to do it with a model because he had other girls with him. So, you know, Hugh Hefner did this, you know, obviously, Dan Bilzerian does this. You look at any guy that's like a playboy, that's like dealing with very, very attractive women, a big component to their game is social proof. It's required when you deal with a certain echelon of women, especially models or women that monetize their beauty. It just comes with the
And it is
territory.
more easy to manufacture social proof than in
Social
this
media.
age.
Yeah.
Miguel, you are the club.
That's
What'd you say to the club, Miguel?
just gangs of tables of just gangs of tables of tiers of men with the women right there. They would put the women, the guys would be at the top there. They would put the women in a circle, and then from there they would have their guys at the bottom there feeding more girls to the top. The best girls. So they would just, it was just a feeding circle. So you would have like a line of girls to bring in more girls.
We used to have a rope. We'd go to the table and they'd have a rope in front with a security guard, and the gals would line up, and then we would just say yes, no, yes, no. And when you had in real life.
That's the original.
And I love it when women get mad, because they'll get mad when I say, you know, guys that get girls are more attractive, or cheating makes you actually more arousing. That's not true, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, let's go into a nightclub scenario, right, where we got the most carnal image of men and women today in the modern day world, right? Outside of K-man, right? What do you got? All the women typically are concentrated in small sections where there's a minority of men, a majority of women, and you know, in the sexual hierarchy, it's winner take all. And women refuse to accept this concept that you know, a multitude of women are chasing a small percentage of men, and they're willing to share. No, that's not me. Blah blah blah. Shut the fuck up, because I know when you go to clubs, you don't pay for your drinks, right? No, I don't. I'm pretty exactly. So the fact that you don't pay for your drinks already tells me that you go ahead and you align yourself with the highest hierarchy of men, because that's how you're able to not drink. That's how you're able to drink for free. But girls will sit there and try to say, "Oh, well, that's not true," or "I'm not like that," or "I would never hang out with that guy," or whatever. But what do I always say, man? Girls lie, right? What they're attracted to and what they say they're attracted to are two different things.
Even on our show, bro.
Yeah,
They say all this
real.
capping here on the show. We go to the club after, bro. They're doing the same exact thing they would never do. I'm like, you just said in the podcast that you don't go out.
This is why I effectively tell, and this is why we run that exercise, spinning it back to the beginning, because women will sit there and say things about this is well, I'm not like that, and that's not attractive, or whatever, blah blah blah. And I'm like, do you even know what it takes to attract a woman as a man? Yes, I do. And that's when we pull out the microphones and we have them run game as a woman and try to get us as a girl. And it's amazing how when we tell them, all right, you're the guy, give us a scenario. They always make themselves 6'3",
hella money,
200, 300 grand a year, making themselves a 1% guy. And I'm like, cool, y'all want to play this game? Fantastic, let's do it. And I give them simple objections that women typically give. Oh, here's my Instagram, or oh no, I'm with my friends, or blah blah blah. And they can't even deal with their own normal female objections that girls give. Girls have zero idea and concept of what it takes to actually attract women.
They have zero game.
They always fail on their face.